Now, whilst I'm obviously familiar with the work of Wadget Eye Games, there's a studio much like them with whom I am far less familiar than I'd like. Indeed, they're so similar that one used to work for the other, if that makes sense. The non-Wadget Eye studio goes by the name of Grundislav Games and appears to be the one-man operation of Mr. Francisco Gonzalez. Titles that came out of his brain include the Ben Jordan games and A Golden Week, but the closest I've come to actually reviewing one of his works is Shardlight, which was primarily the efforts of himself and Ben Chandler while they both worked at Wadget Eye. Never did get round to A Golden Week, and as I've said before, I should fix that, if only to complete the entire Wadget Eye gamography, but that's not our focus for today. We're looking at Lamplight City, a detective tale set in the 1800s. Funny how Wadget Eye tends to stay in a contemporary time period while Grundislav is steadily moving further away from it. Before we start though, it's disclaimer time again. I've spent about 7 hours total with Francisco in the voice chat of 2 charity streams hosted by Space Quest Historian for the benefit of Infamous Quest's founder Steve Alexander. Links in the description as usual. If you think that'll affect my analysis, now you know. Our story begins in 1844 in the city of New Britannia. Bill Lager and Henry Fordham, also known as Ford, are on their way to one last case before they retire to the pub. Hardly a routine endeavour as it turns out. Someone is stealing flowers from a florist and leaving exact payment behind. Long story vague, the detectives catch up to the culprit and the resulting encounter leaves Bill dead. Several months later, Ford wakes up to the sound of Bill's voice, as he has done every day since that fateful night. Yes, Ford is being haunted by his dead partner, and as the two surmise, will continue to be until the flower shop killer is brought to justice. Personally, if I were to somehow become a famous murderer, I'd be hoping for a more ominous moniker than the flower shop killer, but he kinda brought that on himself. Still, I suppose you won't mistake him for anyone else. In the intervening months, Ford has quit the force and found work as a private investigator. Not the most original adventure game protagonist occupation, but how many of them are hearing voices? I mean, come on. It's got to the point that Ford's taking a soporific just to get to sleep at night. And you can imagine the type of substances that went into a sleeping aid back in the 1800s. Then again, better risking that than the treatments they had for mental conditions at the time. If you want to look them up yourself, be my guest, but know that one supposed cure involved a chisel. That's a bit more meaty than the story section tends to get, and that's because I was describing the playable prologue. I decided it was somewhat necessary, given that you'll be hearing Bill's voice throughout the entire game. Pretty much every object description comes from him, with the occasional retort from Ford if there's no one else around to hear a guy talking to himself. Bill's not quite a companion character in the usual sense. You can't ask him for hints or anything, more an extra voice for Ford to play off of. Can't deny it's a unique take, and I do like the sarky wee bandpot, so I'm not complaining. Hardly the game's only innovation either. There's another two I'd like to focus on here. First, one's straight from the game's advertising. It's okay to fail. The game is structured into cases. Ford is given a case, he investigates, he comes to a conclusion, and fingers the suspect. Not in that way though, he's married. Without due diligence, it is possible to end a case with an incorrect conclusion. It is possible to fail. More importantly, it's possible to fail and continue the game regardless. There may be consequences later, but you will move on to the next case. It's a trope so old that it's bordering on default behaviour for video games. No do right thing, no move forward. No the first game to subvert this, but still rare enough that I'm glad to see it. Lack of due diligence isn't the only thing that can screw you in that regard either. In a nod to realism, saying or doing the wrong thing can cause someone to clam up or get you kicked out of a location, and that'll shut down an avenue of investigation. Again, you can continue, but you may not get the whole truth of the matter or even the right suspect. Once I hit one of these scenarios, I started second guessing everything I was doing, in what I think was a good way, but definitely a paranoia-inducing one. Especially when you read a newspaper headline about a case you previously worked on, or when you start bumping into characters from these past cases. Mind you, I can't exactly go into a point-and-click game and complain that I'm being expected to think. Second innovation type thing is the game's approach to inventory. There kinda isn't one. If you don't know, there's this basic backup strategy for adventure games where you use everything in your inventory on every hotspot when you're stuck, a brute force approach. And I think this is Lamplight City's way of avoiding that. Interestingly, it's the opposite approach to that taken by Resonance. That game let you put any object in the world into a short-term memory bank and use it elsewhere to discover connections. Essentially, it made the possibilities so vast that you had to at least narrow it down first. Lamplight City cuts this out entirely. You might find the odd item here or there, but their use, if any, is more or less automatic. This means that everything you do to further an investigation comes from talking to people, discovering clues, and solving the occasional puzzle, and not insulted people so badly they throw you out their house. Man, Guybrush got away with murder compared to this guy. To keep track of the clues and the knickknacks and the everything, we have this interface here. Objectives, clues, suspects and notes all at your fingertips, or fingertip depending on how you hold the mouse. Simplifies the interface no end. You left click to do and right click to bring up the clue/evidence/suspect interface. And while we're on that, you can double click to warp through exits. Yay. That's the two big things this game does differently. As for things it doesn't do differently, I'm not the only one reminded of Gabriel Knight's Sins of the Fathers, am I? Lone man in a long black coat walking around solving crime whilst dealing with a substance addiction, numerous characters of colour playing an important role in the stories being told, references to voodoo practitioners, travel by overhead map, living in an American city which has the name of a French city but with new stuck on the front. Okay, it's mostly the giant character portraits with moving mouths that give me this connection. Were I forced at gunpoint to summarise this game in 10 seconds rather than 10 minutes, I'd be tempted to go with Gabriel Knight times Sherlock Holmes, before I got shot anyway for being a smart arse. Lamplight City does lack the object inventory puzzles, drum code deciphering, bloated verbalist and barely contained womanising of Gabriel Knight, but the influence does seem obvious. Hardly a bad place to take it from either. It's also worth noting the time period this game is set in, because it does come with its share of baggage, shall we say. A pretty god-awful time to be physically ill, mentally ill, unemployed, poor, gay, female, or anything other than a straight white boy, for examples. Automation is front and centre too, along with the argument of these newfangled Steam machines putting people out of work. This gets raised multiple times. The reason this is all worth noting is that the game does a very good job of telling you what this world is like, in a way that doesn't feel like it's foisted upon you. All of this comes out naturally as you're talking to people. Then again, you're an investigator looking for literally any piece of information you can possibly use, so of course these sort of conversations will come up. Good thing the characters are all interesting, because that's a lot of talking you'll be doing. If I'm playing a game I'm not enjoying, walking into a room full of new people to talk to makes me despair. Here I got excited because I know these conversations are going to be worth having. If you want to feel like a detective, this game will do that for you. If I were forced to wander back and forth between two people repeatedly in any other game, I'd probably get annoyed. Here it just feels right. I talk to this person, so then I talk to the second person about the first person, so now I'll go back and confront the first person with the knowledge I learned from the second person about the first person. It sounds daft when you say it out loud, especially in that voice, whatever that was, but I did literally that thing in Lamplight City and didn't bat an eye. In fact, I was excited to get that new knowledge and apply it. Is that what it feels like when you study for something? Must be nice. If it's not obvious by now, I really liked this game. Replacing the traditional inventory system with a focus on dialogue and characters has paid off where it could have very easily gone wrong. The risk of not having that try everything on everything backup strategy is mitigated by the organised list of clues and objectives to keep you nudged in the right direction. And I've already mentioned this briefly, but the details push it from good to great for me. All the information you find out about this city, the newspapers reported on your past cases, all of that makes the world feel a bit more responsive and makes you feel even better when you solve a case properly. Might have the complete opposite effect if you get it wrong though. Throw in the quality voice acting, animations, background and music and yep, you've got something worth buying. Hello, thanks for watching to the end. If you're so inclined to leave a comment, a like, a dislike, whatever you fancy, please do. Or if you really like what I'm doing here, I do have a Patreon if you want to contribute money. Links in the description. Thanks again and cheerio.